Uh, the, 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 the headline for this presentation is about IoT, security, and the privacy issues we have there. And I've been working with IoT for a while, and then I got aware of the EU General Data Protection Regulative. It is coming into force. And I see a huge discrepancy between the different worlds. So that's what this presentation is going to cover. And I am a very sort of technical, interested person myself. So I got a small home automation system. And what you can see here is that I have a few sensors, and this that I have 3 different sensors on the screen here, but the two first of them is actually not mine. They just popped up on my control system, so which is pretty interesting. You can then think, okay, this is probably the other way around as well. So my neighbor can actually see my sensors. And then you have a very interesting situation. I'm pretty sure that the vendor of those sensors and that system actually thinks that it's a good idea to have a very, very easy system to implement. I also think that they believe that a temperature is not dangerous. But meeting this neighbor, we all know that it's not good that we share that sort of data. So with that in mind, I also will take you through the rest of the presentation. Remember, everything we share can be sensitive, and the producers of IoT devices simply don't know in which context that device is used. And then I was at the Mobile World Congress a few weeks ago, and there I made a small research myself, and was looking at companies and discussing with, I think I met 47 different companies in 4 days, and made an approach to them. And I did a search, because I searched on IoT. And now you can guess how many companies have put IoT on their company presentations in the database here. 1,021 companies are doing something with IoT. And the next search was IoT security, and we have 4. And that tells me that we are into a sort of land rush currently, which is very similar to what happened in the Wild West in 1890s in the US. There is a huge drive to get market shares to capitalize on IoT. Very little is done with regards to proper end-to-end security. And that leads me to the second land rush that is happening as we speak. And this is a picture from the largest denial of service attack till now. It happened in October last year, where basically the internet went down in the east coast of US, and as you see the red here, it was not possible to get through on the internet for several hours. Sweden was hit, Germany was hit, but it was mainly in the mainland US that was the most severely hit. So, and what then I would switch a bit to the EU data protection regulation that is coming into force next year. So May 25th next year, everybody in this room must have implemented data protection or for personal data. That means that you have to know where your data is and how to protect it, and also have done the project. So this is, many companies are not aware of this. Some are aware, coming to us and ask for help. But in essence, it's people starting to realize that it's not much time yet left. It's less than a little bit more than a year. What is dramatically different here is that within the EU, there has been a dramatic shift to hefty fines. So you can see the levels of the fines is very high. The 4% of the global revenue for a large bank, for example, that can be huge amount of money. So what happens these days is that we have seen a great management attention. So suddenly the security has become a boardroom theme. So top management need to comply to, or make sure that the organization complies to these new regulations. And the good news is that protecting every one of us individual privacy actually also leads to improved security for society. So this is not all bad. It's a lot of work, yes, but it's not all bad. It's good, actually. Then we can look at the 6 basic principles of the GDPR. They're the right to be forgotten. That means that every one of you can ask a company to say, erase me. I don't want my data to stay in your databases. Big change. Then there is privacy by design. That means that it's illegal, explicitly illegal, to collect excess amount of data. So collecting data just because I might have use it later is not legal anymore. So you have to say that I need these data because I want to deliver the following services to you. That's what the organization must say. Then there are breach notifications. That means that if a company loses your data, they need to tell you, I've lost your data, sorry. And they also have to say the same thing to the government, the authorities. Within 72 hours, they have to say, we have had a major breach and these things happened, or we are still investigating. So this is also very strict and new to European law. Because of the 3 first, you also need to do risk and impact assessment, meaning that everybody need to look into their data, their personal data that they have stored. What is the risk if I lose my customer's data? And then they must evaluate what sort of impact it makes on the business, but also on the privacy and freedom of the individual citizen, which is also new. And the last point is that if I want to move my data as a person, I can ask the organization, I want my data and I want it in a readable format to be ported to another organization or for me to look at. There you have the problem that the formats is not defined. So I used to joke about, say, as long as it fits in my trunk of the car, it is portable. So 25 kilo of data, that's okay. So these are the data regulations that hits the IoT world as well. And this is obviously a major problem. We are talking 20 billion devices in 2020. 2/3 of them are personal. You have Fitbit, you have mobile phones, you have home automation, a huge amount of data that cannot be capitalized in the same way as the creators thought it could be. Okay, so where does the regulative apply? And basically it applies to even the cupboard, the paper-based. You have to protect personal data, regardless if it's IT or if it's stored in a thing or a computer. Thinking that way, you need to make sure that you also look at physical security. Meaning that, for example, I myself, I have this card, and I can use this card to access the office in Oslo and Stockholm. I live in both countries. But I can also use the same card to access my computer and back-end systems. So managing the identity of people that, for example, are operational people that need access to a server room, then you need physical identity. But you also, if it's personal data on that computer, you also need strong authentication, preferably two-factor authentication. And then you can use these type of technologies. So what we are looking at currently, and I think is a very, very good idea for fulfilling the requirements, is actually to put a strong identity management in front of all those systems that are not GDPR ready in May next year. That we know. They are not ready. But you need to restrict access to those systems. And and you need to do it physically and logically, digital. So what we are, you saw that the first My Home automation system. Basically, what that does, it makes an internet of listeners. But it can also be the army of things. Meaning that if we really, really get into into an IoT system as an attacker, you can actually do physical damage and even health problems. And this is a real-life example of a company that made a blood infusion pump, connected it to the local network of the hospital, that in turn was connected to the internet. And these are the problem. To log into the blood infusion pump was very easy, no authentication at all. The researchers that took a deeper look into it also found that updating firmware, meaning changing the operation of that pump by changing the firmware, was easy to do and no security at all. They didn't sign their software or firmware, which means that anyone that can connect to that network can actually get access to this blood pump, change how it works, and kill the patient. And this is interesting, because what happened after that, when the results were presented to FDA, which is the Federal Drug Administration in the US, they issued a warning. That's it. It's a bad idea to connect this blood pump to the internet. That was the warning. But with the new regulation, this is another example. That would be completely different. This lady here is a fellow countryman lady, Marie Mo. She found herself on the floor one day with a serious heart disease, and she is using a pacemaker. And she learned when she would get better, she learned that it was actually connected. Nobody asked her, but it is connected. There's a software bug in it that they have figured out without a new surgery. So obviously, it's also possible to update the firmware of her pacemaker. With reference to what I already said, if you're talking to the Food and Drug Administration in the US, they say bad security, too bad. But I think this, if this is not personal data, nothing is personal data. So this, her pacemaker is personal, agreed? Leaking personal data is bad, is illegal, and suddenly we have a new situation. The good news here is that privacy suddenly improves security for the simple reason that you can't have privacy without security. That's not possible. You have to have security in place to have privacy, okay? So in that sense, GDPR, EU bureaucrats are actually saving lives, I would say. Okay, a little bit about IoT. IoT is all these nitty-gritty things that you can put on the walls or in a water basin. You can do whatever. It's connected. Everything that can be connected will be connected, and that's for sure. But if you look at a system, there you have the sensor networks. People are talking about IoT, then they're thinking about the sensor networks. And, and below the dotted line here, you have very often very small devices. They're constrained. They can't do very much. Low on memory, have batteries, meaning that they are not very talkative. They don't talk too much because that costs a lot of battery life. But everything above that, it's power devices. And if you look at a small cigarette box Raspberry Pi, it has definitely more computing power than my first personal computer. So then we have all the security issues that we are used to have above these dotted lines. So thinking about the IoT security separately is actually it doesn't help us very much. We need to think holistic from the sensor and up to the cloud. And this is an example, it's a discussion I have with a customer on a solution. And in this case, they have actuators, that is sort of process control expression for anything that is turned on and off, or sort of anything you can control. Actuators does the control. Sensors is temperatures and so on. They have Wi-Fi connections, which is not standard Wi-Fi, but low power Wi-Fi for IoT. And then they have wired actuators and sensors. So this, you can say, this could be a building. In this case, it could be a building. You have a local server or gateway. This is a Raspberry Pi, this big, but it's a Linux computer. Then there is mobile applications that is going to control the lights, to control the temperature, and so on. Maybe it's a hotel. So you have a mobile app, you can turn the heat up and down. But also connecting to the customer portal. So you have, and if you're thinking about a hotel, you have administrators, you have maintenance personnel, you have the property owner, you have the guests, you have a number of roles that you need to restrict access to something and give access to other things. So in this area, we're talking again 20 billion devices out there. You need to put some additional security that is really, really strong, and it is also from the device and upwards to the cloud. And as you can see, I put in certificates into the devices, meaning that you have strong identity credentials also for those small things you put on the wall, but also very classic authentication, authorization, and also identity management in that picture. And then suddenly, for any working with IT projects, you see everything plus 20 billion devices, which is a scaling issue for sure, and also some technical issues. What we also have learned is that many of those things that is going to be connected, they are not made to last for 2 years. If you look at the Streetlamp you install in Hanover or in Berlin, the communities or the local governments say, I buy this and it's going to stay there for at least 20 years, 25 years. And if you think IT, put IT into that, I mean, 20 years old IT, ooh, scary, isn't it? So what you at least need is that you need to have a secure software update. So that Streetlamp, if that is able to, for example, communicate with each other, so they sense that people come in and then raise the light level, that's very likely they do, then you need to update the software. You need to renew the cryptographic keys, the ones you need to securely authenticate the lamp, or the lamp need to authenticate towards the cloud service, the host. So there's a number of things here, and also onboarding. I mean, you come with a new lamp, put it up, or even Philips Hue, that's these magic lamps. You can put that in, but you need a way so that you can, okay, it's broken, to take it out, plug in a new one, but that one cannot be a lamp that is modified and listens to your communication. So this is why identity is critical for IoT. You really need to fix the identity problem. And the last one is, the last level we have is low power sensor network, and that's, I'm coming to that now. The standards are coming. We have one project going on. It's CBOT project together with a research organization in Sweden called RISE. We are doing that with Ericsson, Husqvarna, and others. And what the goal there is to be able to issue digital identities to things over an application level protocol called Coop. Coop is HTTP for low power networks, basically. So this is, you can see the reference, there's a draft you can look at if you're very technically interested. But things are happening now. We have a huge number of different network types out there, but at the application level, Coop is gaining ground. So things are happening. Okay, 3 things I'm going to say in the last few minutes. There are a few things you need to do. First, of course, you need to know where your data is and do the risk assessment. If you don't do that, you don't have no idea what to protect. So start with that. Then I would say that some sort of identity and access management is absolutely necessary. And you need to think holistic. If you think, have something here and something here and something here, there will be gaps in between. It will be holes. So think about having a system that basically handle identities all the way from the low level to the high level, to the cloud. Then the next one, it's to make sure that you secure the access. So when you have the strong identities, make sure that it's something in front of those data sources where you can use a strong credential. For example, a smart card to log into the system. That's a two-factor authentication. It's regarded as strong authentication. You fulfill GDPR automatically by doing that in that tiny area, of course. Then you also need to do sort of verify ownership. You need to verify the age of the person. Actually, that's important because you are obliged to ask for the parents' permission if the data subject, as is called in the regulation, is less than 16 years old. So there is a number of things where you can use strong authentication and digital signatures. Because if, let's say, Facebook with how many? 1.7 billion users, because you need some sort of automated processes to handle personal data. I want to be forgotten. For sure, you need to verify it's the right person that actually asks that question. So that leads to strong authentication, good routines. And the third one, I would say that it's important to use and issue strong identities to everything. So even that temperature might be sensitive. Might be. And it's also important, so please don't think that we need to use a very cumbersome way of authenticating users. That's not necessary. Strong authentication can be done flexibly and easy for the user. Yeah. So with that, I think there's the conclusions coming. You need, as I said, the identity of things is something you need to think of if you are heading in the IoT towards the IT. I would also say that I'm not always happy with regulations, but in this case, I think we are in a very, very good situation in Europe. It will improve security dramatically if we follow those rules. And in the end of that line, if you have done our job complying to GDPR, we are running a more healthy business with less operational risk. Yeah, that was all from me. This is my contact details. I'm standing there, Nexus. And if you want to have a chat afterwards, please do.